As the world struggles to fight COVID-19, how do we prevent another pandemic from happening? And what lessons are we learning? Let's focus our attention this week on wildlife conservation and its connection with the coronavirus. Hello, I'm Auriane Itangishaka. Welcome to Our Voices. Last year, pre-pandemic, our team visited Kenya's elephant orphanage operated by the SHELDRICK Wildlife Trust. There, a group of dedicated conservationists worked to save baby elephants.
Coming in as a local tourist for a couple of years, then eventually I fell in love with the elephants.
Julius Shivegha is among dozens of local conservationists who work as animal keepers at SHELDRICK Wildlife Trust, a wildlife animal rescue and rehabilitation program operating in Kenya. 24 hours a day, orphan elephants need care, preparing formula milk, cleaning the stock, and comforting them at night. To do this, Shivegha must sacrifice family time.
I'm working for about 26 days in a month with the elephants. As a father, I need to be with my kids. I am here because of the support that I receive from my whole family, my kids and my wife, especially with my wife's support. I am here today.
Working as a keeper is a job without descriptions, according to the head keeper, Edwin Lusichi.
So when one comes in as a new keeper, for the first 3 months, I'm able to tell your interaction with the animals. For example, at night, we assign different keepers with different elephants. So sometimes I assign you with an elephant and that elephant doesn't want to get milk from you. That elephant doesn't sleep, keeps awake all the time. Some of them make a lot of noise in the night and shout. It is a sign that they don't like you.
Sierra?
Lusichi says it's a physically demanding job.
But you start working at 8 in the morning. You have to go out with the elephant, and in the park you have to encounter all other animals there with your elephant. So you have to be out all day, and somebody brings the milk to you every 3 hours to feed your elephant. You have to bring your elephant back in the evening at 5 and put the elephant in the stable. It always depends on the pressure of the work, because we never know when we're getting an elephant. We can get like 2, 3, 4, 5 elephants in a week. And that is why sometimes you need to work day and night.
The SHELDRICK Wildlife Trust has worked closely with the Kenyan Wildlife Service for over 40 years, raising over 240 elephants as well as rescued rhinos and giraffes. Kirsty Smith, Donor Relations Manager at SHELDRICK Wildlife Trust, says half of the elephants are now living fully independently in the wild.
Every wild-born birth is a sort of a sign of the success for the project for us. So, I mean, there can be nothing more rewarding than a baby being born to one of our babies that has successfully been reintroduced back into the wild.
Poaching remains a serious threat to the wildlife population across Africa. Human-wildlife conflict is a major issue in Kenya due to the expansion of the human footprint and the shrinking landscape for animals.
If we're suffering from incidents of drought and elephants see a tasty tomato crop, they're going to have no qualms going for the tasty tomato crop, and it's the community suffering. That's their livelihood. That's their bread and butter and their school fees. So we're building strategic fence lines and engaging the community to help maintain those fence lines so they earn an income from them, and educating on elephant body language and things so we can all try and learn to live together harmoniously.
Wildlife encounters with the local communities can be challenging, especially when people get hurt. It requires delicate diplomacy from the rescue team. SHELDRICK Trust employs over 400 people in Kenya in anti-poaching, veterinary, and surveillance programs thanks to the Kenyan government and worldwide donations.
You can adopt an orphan for just $50 a year, and that money helps support the Orphans project. And basically, the keepers write a daily diary of everything the elephants do during the day.
And for keepers like Julius Shivegha, it's also the daily joy and emotional connections with the elephants that keeps them going.
Elephants do have good feelings, just like human beings. They mourn, they grieve, They are happy, they love, they smile. They are very full of excitement. They have got different personalities. So you can feel the affection. You can tell when they appreciate your work. You can tell if they are happy with your presence. Good boy, right? Go that side. Okay. 20.
Since lockdowns and border closings began last year, you may have come across images of animals roaming free. But how is wildlife being affected by the COVID-19 pandemic? Here is what some of the conservationists like Kirsty Smith are saying.
We can have up to 500 people here in just an hour. So that's an incredible source of revenue for us, for our operations, that we aren't seeing come in at the moment as we have closed our doors due to COVID-19. So we don't have that daily public visit at the moment where we can also share our work with the general public and let them know about what we're doing.
Since the corona started on the lockdown, there is bush meeting whereby people are idle, people are jobless, they don't have food, and they end up going to the forest doing poaching.
We have already lost $100,000. That means that donors coming from the US, coming from Europe mostly, they have frozen their donation because simply that they cannot cope. They rely on profit themselves. If we don't have the money, we cannot pay for the food. All the staff, we have 40 staff in total and more. The majority is Pandrilus, paid by Pandrilus also. We are supporting the community also. We will not be able to do so. So all of our activity and the reason why we are working here, we will have to put that on hold. But that's really not a situation we want to be in. But that's the situation we may face when our reserve is gone.
Across Africa, COVID-19 has triggered a severe loss of income and budget cuts affecting the entire wildlife sector. One African conservationist group has developed a solar-powered toolkit to safely repel against mammals by targeting their 5 senses to prevent farmers from killing elephants.
Botswana's Chobe region has nearly 33,000 elephants, a quarter of the country's total, which accounts for nearly half of all elephants in Africa. But while the growing population is a good sign for conservation and attracts tourists, the elephants are a nightmare for farmers like Chibeya Longwani, who says they ravage his crops.
The time when I started planting, it was very, I would say it was much tight due to animals were just coming rapidly and coming to destroy. The government was trying, but it was not much enough so that I can stay sustain and even to make life out of it.
Farmers try to drive away elephants by banging pots, burning hot peppers, or in some cases killing them. Conservation group Elephants Without Borders rescues orphaned calves but wanted to prevent the deaths. So the group built a toolkit that uses the animal senses to repel them safely.
When we say senses, we mean we're targeting a different sense of the elephant, just like we have. So smell, touch, sound, and taste. So it's a lot of different techniques that combined make one big toolkit to scare elephants away.
The device called Elesense is solar powered to make it easier for farmers in remote areas with poor electricity. It uses an organic oil repellent, motion sensor alarms and lights, and electric wires. Farmer Longwani says it has helped save his crops.
Ever since I put the electric lines, I haven't had any damage up to now. I'm just producing very well. So now they don't come and disturb. Immediately they can approach, but they get shocked, then they move away.
So far, close to 100 farmers in the Chobe region are using Elesense. From the feedback, most now prefer it as the traditional methods are not 100% effective. Botswana has an elephant population of more than 130,000, making it likely that more farmers will adopt the new device. Mkondisi Dube for VOA News, Chobe, Botswana.
South Africa's Feeding Wildlife Communities program have provided 165,000 meals to rural communities that lost income due to the impact of COVID-19 on wildlife tourism. International rugby player Joe Peterson, incumbent Rhino, NPO, and its project Rhino partners are providing COVID-19 prevention education to help communities avoid turning to poaching for their sustenance. Now, in the United States, the charity group Stop Poaching Now turned their annual fundraising event online to raise money for those in need. I spoke to the founder, Heiti Markel.
SPN Stop Poaching Now is our mission is to basically protect and educate. It takes 10, 20 years to educate the population up to the standard that we would like to see for every kid to understand their fundamental responsibility to take care of the planet for the future generations, to appreciate and also to function in the ecosystem. Somehow we think it's okay, or a lot of people think it's okay to go sport hunting, or that these people need to feed their families. You can't do that if you can't feed your family today if you're going to hurt your kid's family tomorrow. So we have to rethink that. It's not about just your meal today. It's about, millions of people, billions of people in the future. At the same time, as I said, we raise funds so we can also protect these animals and keep them around so until future generations are educated. So we reach to a lot of grassroots organizations in Africa and Asia to support them either through education or protection of their dwindling animal populations.
Right. Now, since the beginning of COVID-19, as you know, the anti-poaching efforts among global communities have faced unprecedented challenges. What are some of the experiences that XPN has seen on the ground, on the continent of Africa especially?
That's right. Tourism in Southeast Asia and Africa is about $240 billion a year. And the problem is with COVID-19, as we see, tourism has just been almost wiped out. And that is a lot of money that these people now don't have. And people are getting desperate, so they're turning to their local resources, which might be elephant tusks or bushmeat trade or pelts and rhino horn is very lucrative. A full-grown male rhino can have street value of their horn is over $900,000, almost $1 million street value. So this is very valuable, and we've seen a huge spike, up about fourfold on the poaching since the pandemic. And at that rate, we thought we might have the elephants for 10 years, but that could make the elephants only around for 5 years. So when we got the call to urgency of this situation from some of our beneficiaries on the ground and some new beneficiaries, they said, please help us. And so every year we had done a local spinning event where we could raise about $25,000 or $30,000 for these efforts. And we thought, well, this would be, since we can't do a spinning event because it's inside, what if we do something that is sort of virtual but sort of interactive? People can go with their families or people close to them in their pod, and they can walk, ride, run anywhere in the world, and therefore the whole world can get involved. We started this initiative of the Global Erase Extinction to raise awareness and raise funds. At this time, the pandemic shaped our local event to make it a global event. And we were able to raise, and on a very short notice, we were able to raise $31,000 to help these people in this time of crisis.
Thank you so much, Heiti, for speaking with us. It's time for a quick break. Coming up, how the wildlife trade and consuming bushmeat are related to infectious disease. How do we prevent another pandemic from happening? Wildlife Fund's chief scientist joins us later in the program to discuss this issue.
Being part of Our Voices is about more than just sitting here and talking about women's issues. It's about listening to them
and bringing their opinions to the table and making sure their voices are heard.
Because our lived experiences, our stories, and our voices will help shape the next generation.
Welcome back, you with Our Voices. COVID-19 is the latest zoonotic disease to become a global pandemic. How do zoonotic disease emerge, and what can we do to prevent them? Let's watch a short video produced by the World Wildlife Fund.
With the global spread of COVID-19, you've likely heard the term zoonotic disease by now. But did you know that they're actually responsible for the majority of new infectious diseases? So what exactly is a zoonotic disease? Zoonotic diseases, or zoonoses, are infectious diseases that originate in animals and are transmitted to humans, causing illness. It is estimated that 3 out of 4 new infectious diseases come from animals. While zoonotic diseases may seem new, they've been making headlines for the past 60 years. These animal-to-human spillovers are on the rise, and the diseases they cause disproportionately impact indigenous people and communities of color. There are currently more than 200 zoonotic diseases. The driver behind these jumps is human behavior. Increasing forest loss, illegally traded live wildlife, and land conversion are all contributing to dangerous environments that lead to new spillovers. Pandemics from zoonotic diseases like COVID-19 will happen again unless we change how we interact with the animals and nature around us.
Wet markets are a source of food and potential income for many. In Nigeria, a key hub for global trade in exotic animals and bushmeat, the markets are bustling, even though some experts believe a similar one in China played a role in the outbreak of the coronavirus. Angela Ukamadu has this report narrated by Auriane Bior.
Just a few months after Epe Fish Market was under lockdown to stem the spread of the new coronavirus, vendors at the site in the southern Nigerian state of Lagos are back buying, selling, and trading. Most of the sellers wear masks to avoid contracting COVID-19. Experts say COVID-19, which has killed around 1,000 people in Nigeria, jumped from animals to humans, possibly at a wet market in China. But few in Epe are worried.
We didn't afraid about the coronavirus because of the coronavirus is not inside the meat.
Kunle Yusaf also says he has been selling wildlife for over 10 years. University of Cambridge virologist Dr. Olivier Restif called for more education around safe animal trade and hygiene.
We're very concerned with the risk that it poses. But when it comes to what should be done about it, we are very cautious because we are very aware that those markets, and in general, the trade of animals and meat products are very important socially and economically and often culturally.
Chinedu Mogbo, founder of Greenfinger's Wildlife Conservation Initiative, is at Epe Market today to see what wildlife he can take off sellers. He hopes to encourage Nigerians to cut bushmeat consumption and avoid animal-based traditional medicine, which can fuel the unhygienic animal handling that can aid virus transmission.
I believe they would appreciate them more, getting close to see them. I imagine going to parks, going to in other countries, and that's what people do.
After about an hour of haggling, he's able to pay and secure the safety of just one of the pangolins. With reporting from Reuters, I'm Auriane Bior in Washington.
With COVID-19 lockdowns still in effect in many places, what can governments do to ensure that people can put food on their tables and prevent another pandemic? We talked to WWF's chief scientist, Rebecca Shaw, and asked her, how did the zoonotic disease emerge?
It's important to understand that viruses that create pandemics are a parasite that can infect all forms of life everywhere. But for a virus to cause a pandemic, like the one we are experiencing right now, it has to contact a human, it has to have a successful infection, it has to be able to successfully replicate rapidly, and then it has to be able to jump out of that human into another human and transmit to others. But the way viruses do it is that they are constantly encountering new species all the time and trying to infect them. Because they replicate so quickly, they create mutations more often. Most of the times, those mutations, when they contact a new species, can't infect the species because the mutation wasn't the right mutation, but sometimes they are successful. And how do they become successful? It's a numbers game. It's when the right mutation jumps from the original host to a new host like a human, and it can contact it, successfully infect, replicate rapidly, and then transmit to another human. So there's a huge number of viruses that circulate in the environment, all with the potential to infect people. But the probability of infecting successfully increases when humans have contact with other animals, or when the genetic similarity of humans to the original host is very high. So we are much more likely to have a disease transfer from an animal to a human if that animal is a chimpanzee or a gorilla. It's much harder for a virus to mutate from a bird and come to a human, but that happens. It just has to have more than just one successful mutation. In the last 60 years, we have seen an increase in those spillovers. And the reason why is that we're increasing our connection to live wild animals through deforestation and fragmentation of forests in tropical and subtropical regions. We are also increasing the illegal wildlife trade of live animals. And then we're also expanding our domestic or our livestock production right next to tropical forests, so that viruses are moving from wildlife to domestic species to humans as well. So now the tricky thing is, if you don't take bushmeat for animal protein, you have to turn to a domestic animal or livestock, say cow or pig or goat. It's really important that that the domestic livestock production doesn't happen at the forest edge. So we need to make sure that it happens closer to the demand for the animal protein, like say closer to the city, because domestic animals, if raised under biosecurity protocols, we can make sure that they don't have the kind of viruses that can infect humans, and therefore the consumption of those animals will be safe for people.
Our thanks to Rebecca Shaw for joining us. Please share your thoughts on wildlife conservation. Our social media handle is @VOA Our Voices. We are on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We are also on WhatsApp. Our number is right there on your screen. Next, VOA's Pentagon correspondent Carla Babb traveled with the U.S. military team training Gabonese park rangers and gave us an inside look on the fight to save Gabon's forest elephants. Welcome back, you with Our Voices. After countries such as Cameroon and the Democratic Republic of Congo nearly lost all their wildlife elephant population, Gabon, home to more than half of Africa's forest elephants, is the center for counter-poaching fight. The Gabonese government, assisted by the international community and the U.S. military, is answering the call for help. VOA's Carla Babb and Betty Ayoub report.
Overwhelming power, overpowered by greedy men willing to kill for their ivory.
We've been shot at.
We are now in war.
What's at stake is the future of Gabon. If we don't beat the poachers, Gabon will go the way of CAR. We will lose our country.
In this tiny Central African nation, park rangers called eco-guards man the front lines. And the U.S. military has answered their call for help.
We not only help them preserve the wildlife, but at the same time we're disrupting criminal organizations and we're helping them develop a better future.
There's a hill here maybe, and then this is coming up. So what does that mean for the objective?
We followed a small army team to see how American training and resources are strengthening the rangers.
In some of the parks they already are a true paramilitary force. They're having gun battles about once a month.
Pull the leaf out there. It's like asparagus.
For biologist Lee White, the nation's Minister of Forest, Gabon is a paradise.
When you see elephants walking out onto the beach in Luango, and then you see a humpback whale breaching in the background, then you think to yourself, is this real?
Yeah.
But that's Gabon. That's what Gabon is like.
Gabon is home to more forest elephants than anywhere else in the world. But over the past couple of decades, they've been killed by poachers by the tens of thousands.
Tragically, we've lost about 70% of the forest elephants of Central Africa in the last 15 years. But between Gabon and northern Congo, we're the only places that are really hanging on.
Gabon's vast rainforests cover almost the entire country, making it a perfect home for the African forest elephant. Unlike their cousins that thrive in the savannas of eastern and southern Africa, forest elephants of West and Central Africa are smaller, with straight tusks rather than curved ones to better maneuver in dense trees and underbrush. Female forest elephants do not start breeding until they are more than 20 years old, leading wildlife experts to estimate that it takes more than 50 years for the species to double their population. According to the World Wildlife Fund, poachers kill at least 20,000 African elephants each year for their tusk, despite a ban on international ivory trade. Forest elephants have been hit the worst. The World Wildlife Fund's biomonitoring report indicates there are now less than 10,000 forest elephants in Central Africa. DRC, CAR, and Cameroon have all lost more than 90% of their forest elephant populations since 2011, a blow that's been lessened due to increased resources for conservation.
I had about 100 staff. I had no cars. So managing 13 national parks in a country the size of the UK with no cars is quite a struggle. It's a hitchhike to get to the parks. And we went from a budget of about $500,000 a year to $25 million.
Parce que pour faire un travail comme celui-là, ça demande beaucoup des efforts physiques, ça demande beaucoup de sacrifices et il faut beaucoup de motivation. Nous avons le devoir aussi de pouvoir préserver cet écosystème, cette nature, cette biodiversité pour les générations futures comme ceux, nos prédécesseurs, donc nos anciens parents.
Now that's all for us today. But be sure to watch the entire documentary on VOA's website. On behalf of our voices and everyone here at VOA, thank you for watching. Good day.